Timeless and never goes out of style is if you can provide good service. When somebody calls to get a real human being who's happy and empowered to help, when they send an email, how fast is that response? How empowered is that employee to actually help them?
Beyond the Wrench with Goninen from WrenchWay.
Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. On today's show, I'm excited to be joined by Joe Hamilton, President and CEO of Vortex Optics. While many people know Vortex as one of the most respected brands in the outdoor industry, Joe has become known for something that extends far beyond optics, and that's the CARE movement. CARE, which stands for Create a Rare Experience, is built around a simple but powerful idea. Every interaction matters, whether it's customers, employees, or the people we encounter every day. Creating meaningful experiences builds trust, strengthens relationships, and ultimately drives long term success. In this episode, Joe's going to share the story behind the CARE movement, how it helps organizations balance performance with humanity, why businesses that win in the long run are often the ones that make people feel seen, valued, and connected. Joe Hamilton, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to kind of get into all the things. But Jay and I go back, 10, 11 years. And so it's just great to connect again with you. And yeah, I'm excited to get into all the things, Vortex, Care, everything.
Cool. So let's talk about how we met. We were in a class, I believe, in Middleton, Wisconsin. That was kind of about, I believe it was something about next generation leadership.
Yep.
And as we kind of sat in that class together, got to know you a little bit along with some others in the class. And at the time, I'm not that big of a hunter. And you had talked about what you did at Vortex, and
Yeah.
I didn't know a lot about it. And so you humbly shared what Vortex did in this class, and I learned a little bit more about it. And I think one of the funny parts was as we left one day, I'm like, wait a minute, you guys are way bigger than I thought
Yeah.
you were. You had built this just awesome business, and there was something that clicked with me in talking to you where you were so focused on self-development and really improving yourself first and foremost. And I as you talked through the books that you read, there were a lot of the same books that I was reading at the time. And I'll never forget you talking about Dave Ramsey's Entree Leadership, and I had read it and really hadn't run across too many others that had. So like it was one of those things where as you're talking about it, I'm like, hey, here's this guy that's a lot like me, and it just clicked with you right off the bat. So it's just been so fun to be able to reconnect with you here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always good to connect with, people that grew up in family businesses. It's like, it's like its own therapy session when we all get together.
100%.
Everything that you go through, for those that know what I'm talking about, you're in a family business. It has so many amazing benefits and learning lessons. And then there's, just a lot of tough stuff that can come with a family business too. So it was just cool to have people with that same background. But what often happens, as it happened with us, is the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And whether it's that business or another business, it's just in your DNA. So it was just, yeah, it was great to connect with you. And it makes sense why you would be, and I'd be reading the same books and geeking out in the same stuff, even though a lot of people are thinking about their barbecue or heading to the lake. We're discussing, the latest chapter in Entree Leadership.
100%. Now, walk us through. Our audience is
Yeah.
primarily the transportation trades, and I'm guessing a lot of our audience is very familiar with Vortex. But for those that aren't, can you give us a little background on Vortex Optics?
Yeah, for sure. And okay, so Vortex Vortex has been around since 2002, but prior to Vortex Optics, my father, my parents, they had Eagle Optics, which was an e-tailer and mail order company, primarily to the bird watching market. They had that for a number of years, and then in addition to that, they had a single Wild Birds Limited store that they started in 1986. They ended up selling that in '07. It's still going. And so each business sort of beget the other business. But our main business now, obviously, is Vortex, and that's technically started in 2002. I can run Cliff Note version through it if you want. But
I love the story. So you
okay,
go
all right, so I'll tell it.
as much into details you want. Yes.
All right, cool. So again, I'll kind of move. It'll maybe start a little slow, but I'll move kind of quick. So um, my father was in Vietnam and did 3 tours in Vietnam. Got the GI Bill, got out, and as he told me one time, he threw a dart at a dartboard of respectable careers and it landed on dentistry. So he goes and becomes a dentist. He meets my mom. They get married. They start having kids. They would eventually have 4 boys. I'm there was twins, then me, then my younger brother. So he was a dentist for I think roughly 10 years, and it was doing well by any business metric, but he hated being a dentist. I mean, he did not like it. Did not like looking in people's mouths all day. He really didn't like the fact that nobody wanted to come see him, even though he really over-indexed on trying to make it an enjoyable experience. But let's be honest, nobody really wants to go to the dentist. So it's a stressful career, even though it was going well. And so what he and my mom would do a lot is they would go on hikes and they'd bring us boys. And then my mom started getting in backyard bird feeding. And there was a local Wild Birds Unlimited. This is in Kendallville, Indiana. I think the store on Wild Birds Unlimited was in Fort Wayne. So my dad would go with her and they would get some stuff and they'd put it in the backyard. He wasn't like a birder or anything. But, very quickly he thought to himself, I wonder if I could have a store like this and it'd be a lot less stressful, which is funny now to think that retail would be less stressful. But, that's what he thought at the time. And so he made some inroads with the franchise, which there was only 6, 7 stores at the time. And they said to him, hey, yeah, we would love for you to be our next Wild Birds Unlimited store owner. We have we have enough stores in Indiana. Why don't you head to Wisconsin? They said you can hit Milwaukee, Green Bay, Madison. So as you know the geography, he hits Milwaukee first. It's too big. He hits Green Bay. It's too small. And on his way back, circling back, he hit Madison, and that was just right. So as they like to say, in a covered wagon, they had them and 3 boys at the time. They'd have a 4th. They came up to Wisconsin, and he started this Wild Birds Unlimited store. And so he was doing what a lot of people that are new businesses doing. I mean, he's got 3 young boys. He's got a wife. So he needs to make this go. So he's sleeping at the store. He's building all his own displays, but the store is doing well. But not too far into having a Wild Birds Unlimited store, he would have all these people coming in saying, Dan, I've got the feeders, I've got the seed. Sometimes we go on walks, but I need optics to see these birds better. And so back then, this is pre-internet. And so he's sending everybody to camera stores. That's where you primarily sent people to get a binocular or a spotting scope. But he soon realizes or thinks he realizes, I might be able to sell these binoculars. And these binoculars are pretty expensive. I'm selling these suet cakes for $1 a piece. Maybe if I sell these binoculars for a couple $100, that would really help the business and help him support his family. So he calls up the brands at the time, the sport optics brands at the time, and he tries to get a rep out so he can open up an account. And they just laugh him off the phone. I mean, they're like, Wild Birds Unlimited, do you guys sell like parakeets and toucans? Like, I'm not sending my rep out there. So in true entrepreneurial fashion, he actually heads to American TV, which sold binoculars at the time.
I remember American TV. Yeah.
You remember it, right? So he buys like 12 binoculars. He clears out a case in a store. He puts them in there and he marks them $1 over what he paid. So, and everybody knows, right? That's not a long-term strategy from a profitability standpoint, but that's not what he was worried about. He's just trying to see, will this work? Can I actually sell them in my store? Sure enough, a couple weeks go by, he sells all of them. So now he calls those same companies back and he's armed with all those receipts. And he tells them everything that he did. And of course, all those brands are on the phone and they're like, well, Dan, technically you violated every one of our dealer agreements, but you know what? That was pretty impressive and pretty gutsy. I'm going to send my rep out. So that's how he got set up selling optics in his retail store. But what he also noticed was that those brands had a lot of different price lists, okay? And if you wanted the best price and you were going to make some significant money for the inventory that you were carrying and the time it takes to sell an optic, it might take an hour with a customer. He really needed to get a better price. And to get a better price, he needed to sell more than just his small store, which is what led him to creating Eagle Optics, which was a mail order company. And eventually, when the internet came around, became an e-tailer, primarily focused still on bird watching, but he would go around the country, to like bird festivals and all these different things and hand out a catalog. And so very soon he became known as the independent place to get sport optics, and of course magnified his reach. And then after a while, he became known as the optics guy within the franchise of Wild Birds Unlimited, which was growing. Okay, so there was a couple hundred stores. They would call him and say, Dan, you're the optics guy. I can't afford to open up an account. Can I get the binoculars from you? So he started to then transship or wholesale binoculars. But the problem was, again, the margins were not good enough to really sell them to somebody else and have them make a margin. Everybody knows small mom and pop, you need to make a good margin there.
Yeah.
So that led him, kind of cliff note it, that led him to creating his own Eagle Optics line of products that he sourced, that he designed, and then he could wholesale that brand to Wild Birds Unlimited, as well as sell that brand within his e-tailer mail order catalog. And so that was a really pivotal moment because he had been a retailer for so long. When he became a wholesaler and a brand, he took all those negatives that he experienced as a retailer with brands, which were a lot at the time, and he turned them on their head and made them into positives. So, of course, like me and the brothers were all working, as kids through these different businesses, Wild Birds Unlimited and Eagle Optics. I had gone to college and was getting out in 2002. I thought I was going to go to law school. I got cold feet. I started to meet and shadow some lawyers, and they all hated their jobs. So I was like, I don't think I'm ready for this. So my dad was saying, hey, I'm getting ready to launch this other piece of the business, which would eventually become Vortex. But the idea on this side of this new side of the business was, he said, everything we're doing with wholesaling at Eagle Optics, it's working really well, but it's positioned around birding. It's positioned around the Wild Birds Unlimiteds. I want to replicate that, but in a non-birding exclusive way. So we had exclusivity with Wild Birds Unlimiteds, and it was either Eagle Optics or Wild Birds Unlimiteds were the Eagle Optics brand. So in 2002, we actually started a bunch of brands, and one of them was Vortex. I don't know if people can see this. This is like one of my
Yeah,
old
we can
business
see
cards.
that. Oh, that is
So,
awesome.
like all these
That is
different
so cool.
brands, and Vortex was one of them. And so what we did is we sold those for 3 years, and a couple things started to kind of bubble up to the surface. Number one, we had a lot of licenses. So we had like Audubon licensing, National Audubon Society. We had collegiate licensed binoculars. We had a lot of these different licenses, and we didn't like having licenses. I mean, at the end of the day, they can
Expensive,
tell you
right?
what you can and can't do. I'll tell you a funny story. So for 3 years, though, we're selling these products, and what would happen is we were selling a lot to hunting and retailers. Hunting is a little bit more of a masculine brand. We had some people in our at Sheltered Wings Vortex who were really into hunting, but then those stores were ordering a lot, so the economics were there too. So it's kind of like some passion, interest, and then the economics were there. Simultaneously, those licenses were sort of frustrating to deal with, and actually, it all culminated at a trade show in Utah. We were going to pitch a $500 binocular on an Audubon binocular. Audubon was our biggest line. And we sat down with the head of licensing and we pitched her this binocular. We had all the data to back it up that we could sell this. And she's a really nice lady. She had a big, thick New York accent. She just looked at us after we said our pitch and she said, yeah, you're not going to do that. She said, we're not going to do that. If I wanted a $500 binocular, I'd go buy a Nike one. That's what
It's a pretty good
said.
New York accent, by the way.
Big, thick
pretty
New
good.
York
Yeah.
accent. And so we were steamed. I thought you could sear the steak on my dad's forehead. But she actually really did us a favor, and I think she was right. We walked back to the hotel and we were like, we got to get out of licensing. We got to control our own destiny. We know we can sell this. People are a lot of those retailers were like, hey, you guys don't need this license. I like working with you. Your margins are great. Your service is great. Your warranty is great. You guys are very expedient with a returned email, a phone call. So you can just have your own brand. Vortex was the name that we had. We liked it. It was kind of positioned more REI-ish, but we took all of our best products across all these different lines. We rebranded them under Vortex, and we rebranded Vortex. And so that was in '05. And then now this is where I'll speed it up. Then we launched, and then these hunting retailers were like, hey, you're becoming my number one binocular and spotting scope line. My number one category is rifle scopes. So we're like, okay, we got to get in rifle scopes. Same thing happened with range finders. Same thing happened with red dots. So it just kind of like every couple of years, it ended up turning out there was a new category to get into. And so but I think, one of the couple things to me really stand out is we really kind of had our radar up for new opportunities. A lot of times when we got hit with something, we realized that that was a signal that we needed to lean in and see if something was there. So for instance, a lot of people like, Dan, I need to get to binoculars. Where do I need to go? That's like a signal. And then we lean into an opportunity. We call them experiments. So they're meaningful enough that if they blow up in your face, they're going to hurt. So if my dad back then, if those 12 binoculars stayed in the case, back then that would have hurt. Okay. We weren't doing a lot of business, but it wouldn't have taken us under. It wouldn't have taken us under. Back then he had the seed, he had the feeders. So same thing when we tried, rifle scopes and red dots and range finders, all those were experiments. We had a lot of data. We had a lot of instinct that said that those things were going to work. But we had our radar up, constantly looking for those signals, leaning in an experimental fashion. So it's big enough that it'll matter and we'll find out, but it's also meaningful enough it would hurt if it didn't. And then I think the other piece, which I think is really every business and every person, is we're really good at compound interest. Like so what I mean is, a big thing for us, we make a good product. I think we make the best product. I always say from the tip of my toes to the top of my head, but other people make good product too, right? I mean, you can see a deer with another brand. You can shoot a deer this fall with another brand. I don't think you should. I think you should use Vortex. But what's timeless and never goes out of style is if you can provide good service. When somebody calls to get a real human being who's happy and empowered to help, when they send an email, how fast is that response? How empowered is that employee to actually help them? I mean, the list goes on. And we did that similar to your intro with every customer, every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. And so what happens is it does compound over time. It takes time, and at the beginning, it's kind of like, yeah, you're growing, and we were growing, but it was slow and steady. But around kind of 2011, 2013, that's where that compound interest started to kick in. And that's where everybody was like, hey, what are you doing now? I'm really starting to see Vortex and hear about Vortex. And it was funny because it was like, well, it really isn't what we're doing now. It really had to do with the accumulation of all those service touch points and all those people. Anyways, I'll pause there.
It's just incredible. I mean, as you're going through the entire story and how, especially credit to your father for having the awareness early on to try different things. And I love how you talk about the experimenting. And we'll talk a lot about the customer care side and the care movement that you're working on. I do have to ask how the brand came to play, right? Because you see that logo everywhere now.
Yep.
And even I think I've seen celebrities that I guarantee don't hunt are wearing the hat. And like it's just everywhere now.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the brand a little bit too, because there's so much there.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. This is another thing that my dad saw really good. He really had some, I mean, he still does, but great instincts and would lean into those. So here's on the brand piece. So in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s, binoculars and spotting scopes and optics in general were really branded and marketed as a tool. Okay.
Yeah.
And they are a tool,
Right.
but very mechanical. So for instance, brands would be selling a binocular based off of the prism coatings and the lens coatings. And so they would be like, it's a roof prism binocular. It's got silver coated lenses. They're BAK4 instead of BK7. And you've got, oh gosh, so anyways, you get the idea.
Yeah.
Very, very technical. Now, here's the thing. Most people that are buying these binoculars for hunting and birding, you're gonna have people on the ends of that bell curve that are geeking out on that stuff. Most people are kind of like, I don't know what you just said. Like I don't know what that meant. What did you call me? And so, and my dad would often say, especially Americans, he's like, Americans, they want to belong to something. Okay,
Absolutely.
it's an identity to who they are. So they want somebody to put all that tech in there, but they don't necessarily want somebody to give them like a science quiz. So they want to say like, hey, these optics, if great edge to edge clarity, great under low light, but he's like, they want to have a good name. So previous, it was very Japanese and German driven. So names of products were BN, BD, FL, EL. Okay. And so he's like, that there's no identity here. He goes, when you look at American cars, they're called like a Ranger. Okay.
Right.
They're called a Mustang. They're called a Viper. They're called, right. And he's like, so you got to have a cool name. You got to have a name that kind of gives somebody an identity. So everything was kind of pushed out, including their interactions with us, as you're part of something. So we ended up calling it Vortex Nation. So you're part of Vortex Nation. So it was less about just selling. It was less about the sterile, I'm selling you a tool. We were selling you a tool and we were selling a good one. And we had all those prisms and we had all those lenses. We had all that too. But what we were really communicating was we were communicating on your level, what you wanted to, and he was very adamant about that. So from the look of the logo to the name of the product to the name of all of our products like Diamondback, Crossfire, Viper, Razor, he didn't want BN, BD. He didn't want the name of the company to be his last name, which a lot of people suggest.
That's
He's
smart.
like, no, I don't want that. So it was just really kind of a mindset. Everything was a mindset, which was great because then, for like me, so I would be like, we got to call this thing Vortex Nation. I'm a big sports guy. So I was thinking Packer Nation, Badger Nation. I'm like, we got to call this thing Vortex Nation. And then it would also, but that was, it encompassed so a lot of brands, especially consumer brands, they want to make a really good widget. They want to market their widget and they want to sell you your widget and they don't want to deal with you after that, right? They don't want to deal with you.
Right.
They're like, that's not what I got into this business for. I got in to make something really good and I'll sell it to you. But like, I'm going to bury our phone number on the website. I'm going to bury
It's really bad right now
on the website because I don't want to have to hear from you. I put all the work in the product. We were going to put a lot of work in the product, but we were like, if you walked into our headquarters, we're like, we want you here.
Yeah.
Like, so everything was about tearing down the walls between the brand and the people that buy the brand. And so everything marketing wise was around, it was something that they could believe in and belong to.
So much to unpack there too, because it just amazing the different look that you've had at this business over the course of the years. While there's a lot of credit to go to your father, I will say I remember when we had met and gone through that class. I don't think your sales team was very big yet, right? I think it was you and maybe another person or a few other people.
A few other people,
And
yeah.
I just remember you talking about like when you'd make a sale, there was something where you threw it in the garbage, threw a piece of paper in the garbage can, and like rang a bell or something. I'll never forget that story.
Yes.
But it's been fun to watch that part of it because I think what you then took with your father's vision and kind of how everything's come together there, it feels like you brought a different element to it from there, right? Where it was maybe some of that salesmanship and some of that ability to connect with a lot of people.
Right.
Did you feel like kind of your personality almost complemented your dad's in terms of
did.
like how you work together?
I did, and he said this, and I believe it's true. So my dad, like, he had phenomenal instincts. He really understood principles and how to apply them. And if you were kind of within his orbit physically, so obviously I grew up in the house, so do my brothers, around the dinner table. I'm in the office with them a lot. I'd be on trips with him a lot. So I would catch a lot of really good leadership lessons, both by him leading by example, as well as him just spontaneously talking about what we were doing.
Right.
Okay. What my dad didn't do so much, I mean, he's kind of from the John Wayne Stoic era, is it would be like, oh, that's awesome, Dad. Let's have a meeting and you tell everybody that. It'd be like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. And so what I was doing, like you talked about a lot of personal development, I really caught on to this law of multiplication. And in order for our company to multiply, all of that ethos and those instincts and those principles needed to get deployed into the people, right? So my job was to kind of be this communicator of that vision, of the mission, of the principles, of the stories.
Mm,
That was a lot of what my role was. And still is, quite honestly. I mean, he's been retired for a number of years, but really still taking what we did and of course building it into who you hire, right? So that was another thing that like he had it up here. He was saying, I'm going to over index on people's kind of core DNA on who they are and what their values are. And is it aligned with ours? He wasn't really communicating that. So it was like, oh, okay, what I need to do is I need to communicate this in a way where everybody understands, hey, it's great they have experience. It's great they have the skill set, but do they actually have a heart to serve other people? Do they
mm,
like that? Because if they have the skills, they have the experience, but they don't have the heart to serve other people, it's just not going to work here.
right.
It may not work right away, but eventually we're going to come to, where we're going to like collide with one another because we don't have the same shared values. So again, that was a lot of my role, was to kind of be this megaphone, and also I would say clarify it, so that there was clarity for the organization and it could kind of have this multiplying effect, as opposed to just maybe having this, one person where all of that kind of knowledge base was just at that one point. We had to kind of get it out to the whole organization, especially as we're growing and adding people.
How did you get good at that part, right? Where you're looking at mission, vision, values. You're looking at how we hire people and how we expect our people to act. How did you get to the point to where you were able to take maybe some of those values that
Yeah.
your parents brought you up with, and really instill that in
Right.
your team? Because it's really easy to talk about. Like we talk about this all the time with communication, that communication is the easiest thing in the world to say, but it's the hardest thing to do. And oftentimes, especially in our
Yep.
industry, we run across that where employees are constantly talking about, I don't feel valued. I feel like I'm just a number. All of these kind of comments that we hear over and over and over again. What made you effective in that kind of spot?
I think it was a couple things. I do think I have some natural skill set for that.
I agree.
I think I probably got that. I mean, I got a lot of good things from my father, but I think I got maybe that from my mother. And but I also think it was out of necessity. In that, similar to you, just having this desire and this passion to for personal development.
Yeah.
And so you're reading constantly on things and organizations and stuff. And so I would come across a lot around that, right? This idea of like, oh, the importance of communication, the importance of this law of multiplication, the importance of shared values. And so it was sort of like, oh, that's an ingredient right now that I wouldn't say was completely missing, but it was like, I have a skill set for that. I have an interest in that, and we have a need for it. So I think it was like a combination of that. And then of course too, like with family businesses, um, and this, they're very interesting and fascinating in that, okay, you have to be good at something if you're part of the family and in the business, or you should be,
Yeah.
but you kind of have to have your own lane relative to your other family members. And that doesn't mean that, I mean, I love my family members, and they have done so much for Vortex, and I've been blessed in the sense that they're all brilliant. Nobody is like the redheaded stepchild, right? That it causes all these problems. Their spouse doesn't come in and cause problems. I don't have any of that. But that said, you really have to carve out your own lane and identity. And if you're in the same lane, it can be problematic.
Mm,
And so that was another, again, I think a piece there was like, okay, for so many years, my dad was leading the company, right? And so it's like, Joe, you're not, like, and that's okay. Like, but I needed to have a lane to deploy all that energy and all that stuff of my gifting and strengths. And so it worked. That part worked out really, really well. And then, of course, again, as always is the case, and I'm not perfect, but he was a great example. And that was the thing also, regardless of what I'm saying that's coming out of my mouth, I also had to be a good example of that.
yeah.
Otherwise, that doesn't mean anything. And so I think that, and that goes for anybody, right? You're the example that you said is speaking far louder than any words. But again, but words are needed,
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Well, and I think you hit on such a good point there. And even outside of a family business, this is something I think I learned early on in my professional career that it didn't click with me when I was younger, which is that everybody has a different skill set. Just because you're strong at something might not, it doesn't mean I'm strong at that same thing. Right. And it
yeah,
took me so long in my early professional career to come to terms with the fact that, hey, I'm not good at this one thing. And I'm okay. Now I'm open about all of that. But at the time, it was always a struggle for me to understand what my lane was, right? And what I was really good at. And I think it's some level of maturity over time where you kind of fall into that lane and you understand, hey, not only am I better at this, I kind of like this side
right.
better because I'm better at it, right? It just takes some
Totally.
time and some maturity.
It really does. I think, yeah, when everybody's in the early stage of their career, um, there's some can be some insecurity there,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
You want to be validated. You want people to say great things about you. You want to be known as the expert of this. And so the irony I find a lot of times is when you're in that, um, the ability to be not only humble but vulnerable and say I'm not as good at this, or maybe I'll give this up, is really hard because you're wanting so much the affirmation of everything. But ironically, it really shows great leadership. It shows great wisdom, and it's quite attractive, not in like the romantic sense, but to your team to see a leader to do that. But I would also say, and I think you hit on it. It's a strength plus something that brings energy to you, right?
Mhm.
And so I would say there sometimes you might have a strength, it brings energy to you, and you're just really early. And so you don't necessarily have to give that up, but you can be honest about that. Say, hey, I think I've got some aptitude for this. It brings me a lot of energy, but I'm 22 right now, and I know I'm not going to be world class at it. So I'd like to not completely give that up. I'd like to stretch those skills and grow. But at the same time, yeah, I'm not a turnkey thing right now, and so, but I think you hit on it. You'll get good if you've got an aptitude, but it brings energy to you. And if you don't have that second component, you can be good at it, but I doubt you're going to end up being great because you'll get burnout.
Every shop, dealership, and business in our industry depends on great technicians. Between the technician shortage, disconnected school relationships, and lack of trustworthy workforce data, it makes it difficult for shops to plan, hire, and grow. That's where ASE Connects comes in. Created in partnership with WrenchWay, ASE Connects is a membership designed specifically for shops like yours to help you build a stronger technician pipeline by connecting with schools, empowering you with tools and data to improve your recruiting, retention, and performance. With ASE Connects, you can connect with local schools through School Assist, start building relationships, and support the programs that educate our future technicians. You can also access verified data on technician pay, benefits, and labor rates through the Industry Data Exchange so you know how your shop compares locally and nationally.
Lastly, you can get proven strategies for leadership, employee development, and shop management through members only guides, templates, and events. Join ASE Connects to strengthen your workforce and build a stronger, smarter shop. Learn more at wrenchway.com/solutions/shops or follow the link in the show notes.
Speaking of things that people are great at, you are great at, and when I say great, like a elite level of truly caring about people. And I think in one of our conversations prior to this recording, you had mentioned something about the fear of AI and kind of how
Yeah.
the perception is AI is taking so much. And the timing was funny because this morning before we hit record on this, I'd read an article on how there's starting to be a balance now because AI is getting really expensive and access to AI is getting very expensive. So now there's actually a conversation that's almost tilting back toward, okay, maybe it is less expensive to have people. But in our conversation, it wasn't even about the expense side. It was truly about how our world has kind of turned into this automated kind of machine, and the way that you look at the world is so different than a lot of business leaders. And this is something that has really stuck out to me as I've followed your content throughout the years, is that you've stuck to some core fundamental things of how you treat people in a way that I think is different than most, right? And not just in your world, but in most worlds on the business side. So I want to talk about this care movement
Yeah.
because it is something that really hit home with me, and I've been a huge fan of following everything that you're putting out because to me it is so powerful and it's so refreshing and different than what you're hearing in a lot of media.
Right.
So talk to me about this a little bit. What drove it? What is it?
Yeah.
And how do you see this helping everybody?
Yeah. So CARE is an acronym, like you mentioned earlier in the intro, create a rare experience. And it was something, an acronym that I think I'd heard in like the mid to late 2000s. I don't even know where I heard it from, but I loved it. And I was the kind of cube and pod I was sitting in. I mean, Seamus is still with us. He's been with us for 28 years going on, plus. And so we would talk a lot about, we'd hear it from my dad. We knew kind of like the ethos of who made us us. And this CARE acronym, creator experience, was just like, we'd say it and everybody knew what we were talking about. It's like when you know somebody so well, you can speak shorthand. And so you have your own language. And so when we ended up coming to formalize our vision, mission, and core values, the vision for us is the better world that we want to create, which is, be the catalyst that improves the world through service. So we want to be a catalyst through service. Service is a superpower. So we want a world where businesses are making service their superpower. They're making great tools just like we are, but they're really leaning into service as a superpower, serving other people. Service is not subservient, it's a superpower. The mission is how we do that. Well, we do that by creating a rare experience. And a rare experience is this unique, memorable, personalized experience. So good, somebody feels seen, valued, important, like they matter because they do matter. So when we came to our mission, it was actually the leadership team was like, it's CARE. That's what it is. It's create a rare
Wow.
experience, which was really cool because I wanted it to be that, but I didn't say that. But so they kind of came back. But here's what was been happening in 2018, 2020, going on is I get a lot of people saying like, hey, Joe, like what's the secret sauce behind Vortex? Okay. Can you be on a podcast or can you come speak or whatever? And I love doing those. It's hard sometimes to carve out the time, but I love doing those. But anyways, in the course of like getting asked, about the Vortex story, I kept thinking, if to be the catalyst that improves the world through service is our vision and creator experience is our mission, well, really what we need to do is we need to actually share these principles, which we don't own. We put our name on them. We come up with our unique name. We share our stories, but principles are woven into the fabric. Compound interest, I didn't come up with that. God did. Okay. Our goal is human beings and businesses to uncover principles and align ourselves to them. But it was to share that to be a catalyst so that other businesses do it. And other businesses do it first. and foremost to serve other people. But as a byproduct, it will help their business and their bottom line. So we're not anti-bottom line. I'm not even anti-AI or efficiency,
Right.
but it is not the main thing. The main thing is serving other people. They're the center, and efficiency and automation and all that comes after, which allows, if we can keep our mindset on that, that allows us to deploy those things in an appropriate way. So I'll just give you some examples of, like, these are just very simplistic examples, but they might be best used because it will help people extrapolate in their situation. So let's say it's Christmas and you're getting ready to send out business Christmas cards to people. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got a lot to send. You've got a lot of customers. You got a lot of vendors. Let's say you've got 300 Christmas cards to send. And you're like, that's going to take a lot of time. I know, I'll write a message and then I'll get it printed on a Christmas card along with my name. And then we'll just get them in. And actually, I can probably get the place we get them printed to. They can stamp them and ship them there. Dunzo. Now I can get back to the real work, right? Well, okay. And excuse me a little bit, and I it might have offended some people, but just don't send any Christmas cards.
Right.
Just save the money, save the postage. I'm going to give you a secret. Nobody cares when it's a printed Christmas card.
Totally agree.
They don't.
Totally agree.
It's vanilla. It's not a rare experience. Now,
Not from the heart at all. Yeah.
Right. Now, here's the thing. You might be right. You may not be able to do 300. So maybe the Christmas cards isn't your create a rare experience. But I'll say this. If you want to send Christmas cards, send as many as you can actually write a real note, a handwritten note. And oh, by the way, let me give you another tip, because every time I say this, some people say, but my handwriting's not very good. And I'm going to tell you a little secret, and that's this. Nobody cares.
They don't.
Nobody cares about your handwriting. What they care about is that you took the time to put pen to paper. So you'd be better served sending 25 Christmas cards to people that you can authentically write something unique in that card. Or maybe you want to send all 300, but you're just going to have to carve some time on the weekend and the evening. But you're going to do it. Why? Because serving other people, making them feel seen, valued, and important, and that they matter, because they do matter, that's a core principle for you. So you can do this in a lot of different situations, and then you can also evaluate efficiencies over, is it really an efficiency? Because really, effectiveness trumps efficiency every single
100%.
time. The worst thing you can
100%.
do is be efficient at something that doesn't matter. And so often you can efficient your way out of creating a rare experience. So you have to realize what is actually a rare experience. And what I would say is you have to find moments. Now, sometimes the moment comes where somebody just calls you, they walk through your front door, they email you, you didn't see it coming. You have to have your radar up. But you can be proactive and say, hey, at these different touch points, we're really going to lean into making sure this person feels seen. We're really going to make sure that we lean in, make sure this person feels like they matter, because they actually do. We maybe can't do it at every moment. And so that's where when you do that, okay, and here's what I would say. Andy Stanley has this phrase that he says, do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. So here's the other thing. A lot of times people will say, if I do that one thing for that person, I have to do it for everybody. And the reality is you don't. You don't. That's what we call the boogeyman. And the boogeyman doesn't actually exist, okay? And so, and I'll give you, if you have time, I'll give you a story about the boogeyman.
Please, I love these.
Okay.
These are phenomenal. Yes.
So years ago, when my dad had the Wildbirds Limited store, early in the Wildbirds Limited days, customer comes in, businessman. This is how long ago it was, in the 80s. So he's coming in a full suit, because everybody was wearing full suits back then. And he's got this bird feeder. We'll just pretend this is a bird feeder. He's got this bird feeder in his hand. This thing is mangled, right? It's mangled. He comes in. My dad's in the back. His employees are out front. And he's like, hey, this mangled bird feeder, it's a piece of junk. I want my money back, or I want a new feeder. And the people behind the counter, they're like, we don't even sell that feeder. We've never sold that feeder. So they're going back and forth and they're kind of haggling with this guy. And he's like, well, my wife bought it. There's no other Wild Birds Limited store in Madison. Where else do you think she got it from, right? So finally, this guy gets so worked up, they head in the back because he's like, I need to talk to the owner or the manager. They go back and they see my dad and they ask for him to come out. And this guy gives my dad the third degree, on this deal. And he says, I'm so sorry that happened. Goes over, grabs a brand new feeder, hands it to him. He's like, I'm really sorry that happened. Please have a nice day. Now, here's the thing. Let me ask you something. After all that, do you think that guy was happy when he walked out?
I would hope.
Well, you would hope.
Probably
Guess
not.
what? No, he was still upset. And the reason he's upset is because he had to haggle for it. Now, here's what I think happened. This is what my dad think happened. I was not in the store when this happened. I believe it. This gentleman's wife did buy a feeder. She might have bought it from Mounds Pet Food. She might have, I don't think the internet existed back there. She might have bought it, from Menards. I don't know. But she didn't buy it there. But then he's on his way home and she asked him, like, honey, on your way home, can you return this? He looks up, only sees one bird store. And so, yes, he's in the wrong, but his wife is a frequent shopper. Okay? Somebody's a frequent shopper. But he comes in and could he have handled it better? Yes, he could have handled it better. But the thing is my dad realizes, well, first of all, there's customers watching this and they're kind of backing away. Like, I think I would leave. Second of all, this guy's had to haggle so hard. He's never coming back. He's telling his wife, I had to haggle with these people. She's never coming back. What he realized is a couple things. One, he realizes he's got to communicate to his employees about his wishes. But two, he realizes if I gave that bird feeder to him right away, he would have been happy.
Yeah.
And the story he gave his wife would have been, you'll never believe those guys. I walked in within 3 minutes. I got a new bird feeder and they're the best. And so all of a sudden repeat business gets better. The customers in the store that are watching this, like, what a great place. They might even up what they're going to purchase that day. But the other thing is what the employees were worried about and what he had to teach them is they were worried about that there was going to be a line all across Madison of people with mangled bird feeders, right? And if we did that for him, we're going to have to do it for everyone. And pretty soon we'll be out of business. We got 50,000 bird feeders that we got to replace, right? Well, you're laughing with good reason because that's not going to happen. Okay?
But in the moment, you think that way, right?
In the moment, it's that way. So if you can decide ahead of time, and by the way, is there a level a customer can go to where they deserve to be fired as a customer? Yes,
100%.
there is. Okay. So by all means, there is. If they're treating your employees bad, I mean, we fired some customers, not many, but we have. But the point is, what's really getting in the way more often than not is this boogeyman mentality. And that's where people head straight to efficiency. And that ruins creating a rare experience. It ruins it. You'll never lean into something that's a one-off thing because you're so worried about extrapolating it out and scaling it out. And so what happens is nobody really gets a rare experience. And if nobody gets a rare experience, guess what? Your business is kind of vanilla. Because I hate to say it, it's very, very rare that you can come up with a tool, a widget, a product that is truly unique and one of a kind. I know we all think we are. I know it. But I can go in any industry and there's going to be somebody else who can do it. And if they can't, they're going to get within spitting distance of you pretty quick. So what's the difference is how easy is it to do business with you? Do I feel seen when I call in? When I call you and my roof just got mangled because of the hailstorm, what's that like? What's that experience like for me? Do I call and do I get a real person? If I leave a message, how quickly do I get a return phone call? Is somebody just the facts, man, just the facts. I just need your information, or is somebody empathetic on the phone when somebody's telling you about their situation? I mean, we could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
So when the White Hot Center is serving other people, what happens is you feel better. They feel better. You actually do make the world better. One person at a time, one interaction at a time. And as a byproduct, you're going to get repeat business. You're going to get referrals. And I'll tell you, in 2026, you're going to get them exponentially. And the reason why? because everybody is so wound around the axle of AI, automation, and efficiency. So where in 1950, what I'm talking about may have been pretty common, okay? The pharmacist knows everybody in your family and everybody in the town, and they're asking you, right. In 2026, it's not the case.
Right.
So interestingly enough, what has happened is you can actually stand out by doing these things that take time and intentionality. They don't usually take a lot of money, but they actually make you stand out. I'm telling you right now, I'm not against AI. There's situations where we
Same.
use AI, and I think we'll continue to use AI, just like when the internet came around. But if we use AI to instead handle phone conversations when customers call in, they're going to feel that.
Oh yeah.
They're going to feel that. And over time, that's going to erode a lot of the goodwill, and it's going to erode them feeling like they're part of something. And and here's the other thing. I've got a bunch of people that are on phones and emails. Those people matter. But if what all that matters is efficiency and automation, then I'm going to get sold on some guy that says, you know what? You've got 45 people on phones and emails. I can get that down to 15. What are you paying those, what are you paying those 27 people? What about the
Hear that all the
insurance
time
for
right
those
now.
27 people? What about all the benefits? Boy, you'd be saving a lot. And what about all the residual costs, of various things that you need to have for those 27 people? But you see, for me, those 27 people matter. I want them here. So I might figure out ways to deploy AI, but not at the expense of those 27 people. And by the way, not at the expense of the 27 people that hit thousands and tens of thousands of people via the phone and via the emails. So that's kind of this idea. This care movement is taking a mission of care, turning it into a movement to try to achieve our vision. So we're all about people having a great bottom line as a business, getting more sales, getting this passionate, obsessed customer base. We are, but that comes as a byproduct of compounding those care moments day in and day out, and trusting that compound interest is eventually going to kick in. And guess what? It is probably the most rare thing in 2026. What is not rare in 2026 is AI. It's everywhere. And there are people most likely who have much deeper pockets than you that are in that arena. So can you really beat OpenAI? Can you really beat Claude? No, but I tell you where you can beat them. You can beat them when you get a phone call, when you see a person, when you go to a person's house, if you're doing a service call, et cetera, et cetera. You can make those moments matter and stand out, but you do have to truly care about other people to do it. Otherwise, it won't work.
Oh, there's just so much good advice, and it's what I appreciate about you the most is I don't think in all of the growth of Vortex and all of your personal growth, I I feel like you're the same person that you were a dozen years ago or so, right? Like
I guess some
you've
more gray
really
hair, but
same,
yeah.
same. But I'll never forget you standing up in front of the group that our little group that we had and talking about your warranty story. Of
Mm,
course, your warranty story is infamous, and it's one that it just stuck with me from the early stages of like listening to you talk about. Do we almost like the bird feeder thing with your dad, right? Where you're the same thing where are you going to argue with your customers over warranty, or are you just going to take care of them? And it was one of those things that back then stuck with me all of these years now of just almost logically looking at it and saying, okay, why do we don't want everybody to be miserable. Like we want people to enjoy work and being able to take care of people. And I almost feel at some level where one of your true gifts lie is that you've given your team permission to be able to do some of this stuff, right? Whereas when you go to a lot of companies and you see, it's very structured and people are afraid to make a breath because they're going to get in trouble. You've gone a different direction than most, and I think that's the beauty in everything that you've built is that it is in a really cool way. I think there's a reason why, I know a lot of people that work for Vortex and they're all very passionate about the brand. You talk about the people that you have inside those walls. It's just so much credit to you and your family for what you've built and being able to stick to principles like this, because it is so different than so many others out there. So I just, I can't give you enough credit for everything that you've built. It's been fun to follow over the years, and it's pretty special, man.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I had some good teachers, and I, some good examples. And obviously, we have great people. One of the things that we try to do, which again, you just to offer maybe another tip, is I would highly recommend people get people who already share their values, who already have shared beliefs, and then you can give them the North Star. But yeah, you can empower them and let them. And I'm glad you pointed that out. Is to let them be empowered and to be creative and to lean into creating these rare experiences, but kind of in their way. And it is the best ideas. They come from our people. They don't come from me. It's our people who, kind of see these opportunities with these customers, and they lean into them and they elevate these moments. And again, it makes your life, when you go home, you feel happier about the work that you did. You feel good about the work that you did. And then, of course, again, as a byproduct, it's wonderful that it leads to repeat business, loyal customers, and word of mouth, and growth over time, which allows you then, with that growth and that kind of surplus and that abundance that you create, you get to funnel that right back into your people, right back into all the products and things that you do to serve other people. So it's kind of like a big circle, but that, it does work. We try to be humble about our success, but at the same time, we want people to know that we are an example. So it does work. It's not just lip service. It's not just feel good stuff. It does actually work as it pertains to running a successful business.
Oh, well, I've got, couldn't agree more. You guys are a shining example of what to do. To end the show, we have three just quick hitting questions for you, kind of fun, but what was your first car?
Oh, what was my first car? Oh gosh.
Really
It
hit
was
you
a
off of
shared
a,
car. So I think it was a
all right.
Toyota Camry 1992 Camry that all three of the older brothers shared. Yeah. Yep.
So it got a little beating before it got to you.
Oh,
You got,
totally. Yeah, totally. Always. Always.
are you a morning person or a night owl?
Oh, I'm a morning person.
I could have answered that before I even asked it.
If I'm up at 9 p.m., it's a miracle. You can ask my wife.
Last question. Favorite food group, or let me rephrase that. Favorite type of food.
Favorite type of food. Oh my gosh. I'm steak. I'm a big steak guy. I could eat
Not
steak
a bad thing.
morning, noon, and night, and so I love a good steak.
Oh man. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. You're a very busy person, and I really appreciate you carving out a little bit of time in your schedule to join us for this. And I look forward to seeing the future of Vortex. Everything that you've done, I've been just a huge fan of. I know a lot of the people listening will also be fans of Vortex if they hadn't been already. I'm guessing most of them have been. So just really appreciate everything. Best of luck in the future, and hope to talk to you sometime soon.
Well, thanks for having me. This was a fun conversation.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.